Hello and welcome to Great Heights Training. My name is Priska and I'm the NVQ Assessor Trainer for the Assessor Training course. Today we'll be looking at continuing professional development, which is a very important part of an assessor's life. As you become an assessor, you qualify, you will realize that CPD, or continuing professional development, or continuous professional development, is something that you will be hearing a lot. And it's very important that you understand what it means and its importance and everything to do with it. So today we'll be looking at that. Continuing professional development is very important part of the course. It's very important part of the assessor's life. It's also very important for you to understand how it works, because if you don't understand its importance, you will not be able to put it in practice as an assessor. And continuing professional development is a very important part of the syllabus of the new A1 training, which is the training that you're doing at the moment. It's one of the last section of the whole unit, and that's why we're going to be doing this topic today. So today we'll be looking at what continuing professional development means. We'll also be looking at the benefits of continuing professional development. Why is it important for an assessor to have a CPD, or to understand what a CPD is or how a CPD works? One other part of continuing professional development we'll be looking at is also reflective practice, which you will come across when you are doing the knowledge part of your training. So this is everything that we'll be looking at today. If you have any questions, you can always email them to us and we'll always get back to you. So let's look at the definition of continuing professional development. Continuing professional development, or CPD, or continuing professional education, is the means by which members of professional associations maintain, improve, and broaden their knowledge and skills, and develop the personal qualities required in their professional lives. This is a very long explanation, a very long definition of continuing professional development, but this is mainly like the technical, the knowledge side of what it means. If you read it well and you break it down, what it's saying is continuing professional development is mainly important or existent in the lives of people who are professionals. And as an assessor, you are a professional. You are a professional in terms of assessing people. So, and we can go on to that later. There are professional bodies that you can register with as an assessor who will help you with CPD and keep you up to date with information and changes and regulation and policies. But right now, professional development is very important in the life of a professional, in terms of it is what you use to maintain your knowledge, which is to keep up to date with everything that's happening, to improve as well and broaden your knowledge and skills, and develop the personal qualities that's required in your professional lives. This is mainly a technical definition that I wanted you to have a look at so you understand what it means, but we'll go onto the easier part, which is what it is really in terms of we speak using our day-to-day language, so we understand what professional development is. Continuous professional development is your professional development portfolio. As an assessor, we are working in an environment that's always changing, and as an assessor, you will always be developing yourself. You will always be doing new training. Like, for example, now, before the A1 qualification, there was the D32 or D33 qualification, which assessors used to need to have to become an assessor. Now, after a few years, that's changed to A1, and now it's changed to the level 3 in assessing competence in the working environment, which is what you are doing. So as you can see, as an assessor, you will continuously be developing yourself. You will continuously be training. You will continuously need to know about new updates in your area of assessment. And that continuous professional development, it's a portfolio where you keep all those things that you are doing. It's a portfolio where you record your training and achievements to do with assessment. So which means as an assessor, you will be doing training, you will be attending small training that will help you improve as an assessor. You will be achieving, especially in terms of achievement, it's about portfolios of candidates that you work with that have completed, that have got their certificate. So all these are your achievements as an assessor, and your continuous professional development portfolio will need to record all that. And especially as an assessor, you need to continuously develop yourself. So which means you will need to have a development plan to know that, okay, now that you finish your A1, that you finish your qualification, you become a qualified assessor, it doesn't finish there. There are more things for you to do. I don't mean things in terms of you have to do another qualification or another training, but there are small things that you need to do to keep up to date, to keep developing yourself. For example, standardization meeting, for example, working with candidates, meeting with IVs, all these are counted as development plan. All these count towards your training and achievement to do with assessment. So which is what really a continuous professional development is. It's really you as an assessor. I'm going to base it on assessor. Continuous professional development can be applied to any professional, but here, since we are working within the assessment environment, I'm going to keep it to assessors. So as an assessor, your continuous professional development is you personally, your personal training, your personal achievement, your personal development plan as an assessor, showing that you are up to date, showing that you understand what you're doing, showing that you are continuously improving yourself. Because when we go to why it's important, you will see that things are always changing. And as an assessor, you cannot not change when everything around you is changing, especially with technology now. There are new ways of assessing, so which means it's very important for you to be up to date with that. And this is what we'll look at in a few minutes. So basically, that what we've said is continuous professional development is what you do as an assessor to develop your skills, to develop your knowledge, to develop the different things that you know, and to professionally develop yourself and personally as well, which is now what we look at is why is continuous professional development important? In the lives of any professional, this is very important because if you are in a profession, things don't always stay the same. Things that were 10 years ago, they are not here anymore. So which means if you are in that profession, you need to always be up to date because of changes. There are always changes in regulations, procedures, practices, assessment methods. There are new assessment methods coming up. So which means as an assessor, you need to be up to date with that. And your CPD is what will help you to maintain that. Your CPD is what will help you to know that are you up to date with everything, because everything is recorded there. Your CPD is not something that you just do and you put it away. It's something that you keep working on regularly. You always check, you always review, you always make sure that you are up to date with everything. It's very important because employers, they need your CPD. As an assessor, once you qualify and start looking for work, you will realize that your CV is not enough. Every employer or every employment agency will ask you for a copy of your CV and your CPD, because employers who are employing, they want to know that the assessor that they are employing is an assessor who's got experience, is an assessor who's attended standardization meeting, is an assessor who's qualified, is an assessor who's got a portfolio, is an assessor who's up to date. So they need to know all that, and how they will know that is through your CPD, because your CPD will contain all this information. Your CPD is what will sell you to the employer. So you need to make sure that you have a very good CPD. When you start with, your CPD might not have too much in it, but as we'll look in a minute, we'll look at what do you put in your CPD. And when we look at that, you will see that even from now on, there are certain things you are doing that you can start collating for your CPD, because it will help. Once you qualify, you need to have a CV and a CPD that will help you to get a job or get contracts or whatever you want to do. Now, another thing is external verifiers. When they come to a center to verify portfolios that have completed or portfolios that are in the middle of the training, they always ask for the CPD of the assessors and the CPDs of the internal verifier. The reason the external verifiers want that is a bit similar to why the employers need it. Is the CPD will show the external verifier your level of experience, your level of knowledge, your skills, what you have done so far, and that will help them to be able to, when they're looking at your portfolio, base their decision based on what you have been doing in the past. Your portfolio, your CPD will help them to know you a bit better, because when the external verifier is there, you are not going to be there as an assessor. So which means your CV is always something the external verifier will want to have a look at. and your CPD is something the external verifier will want to have a look at. So therefore, when you start working, you will notice that your employer or the center manager will always require a copy of your CV, your certificates, and your CPD, because external verifiers do look at it. Like I said before, your CPD will show your track record. It will show the employer what you have been doing since you qualified as an assessor. As soon as you got your A1, what have you been doing to continually develop yourself, your track record? Have you done any work? Have you completed any portfolios? And this is what your CPD will contain, your track record as an assessor, and therefore will show your competence in the area that you are assessing. Even training that you do with, if you are assessing in health and social care, any training you attend for health and social care should still be in your CPD, because that shows you're continuously developing yourself in terms of the area you're assessing. It applies to every other area as well: customer service, business admin, hospitality, catering, everything. So you need to make sure that you have a CPD. It's very, very important. And the CPD will also show reports of the IV on your work. When you start working, when you start assessing candidates, you will have regular meetings with the internal verifier. And every time the internal verifier meets with you, they always produce a report to say what decision they've made on your work, or to put comments in terms of what do they think of your work, whether they think you are competent as an assessor, whether they think you are doing a very good job. So these are all bits and pieces that are put together to go into your CPD portfolio, because it's when you need something, all you need to do is go to your portfolio. You'll be able to take it out and give it to the employer or whoever needs it. So very important for you to have a CPD, because your CPD will help you to get up to date and will help you to get a job, will help you to show your competence and your track record as well. Now, the next thing we'll look at is, we've been talking about what a CPD is. We've also talked about why is it important. When we were talking about the importance, we kind of talked a little bit about the content of your CPD, but let's look a little bit deeper what your CPD portfolio will have. Your CPD it's similar to a portfolio of work, a portfolio of achievement. That's what it is really. So your CPD portfolio will contain certain information that will show your training, your development, your plan to develop yourself. So one of the things in there will be the IV report on your work. Like I just mentioned previously, you'll be having regular meetings with internal verifiers, and when IVs meet with you, they will do report. Or sometimes you can request, you can ask them, can you give me a report to go into my CPD? Because it's good for you to collect all these, because one day you will need them. So this is one thing that's in your CPD. The next thing are CPD activities. Anything that you do that show that you're developing professionally, that show that you're doing something to develop your skills or knowledge, counts as a CPD activity. Some example will be training. Any training you attend, whether it's a training to do with the area you are assessing in, to do health and social care, business admin, catering, construction, anything, it goes towards your CPD. Any training you do towards your assessment, which is if you attend a training that an awarding body is organizing for assessors, that goes in your CPD as well, because it's showing that you are developing your knowledge and your skills. Any reading that you do, you could be reading articles, you could be reading magazines, you could be reading online, you could, anything that you read to do with assessment, any legislation, whatever you read, always write them down, and that will go into your CPD. The next thing, shadowing. Shadowing means if you are not qualified yet, or even if when you are qualified, you are working with another qualified assessor, you're shadowing them. In terms, if an assessor is assessing somebody and you are there supporting, you are there helping them out, they need to give, you can ask for a reference from them to say that you've been shadowing them to do this, this, and this, and this, and that will go into your CPD. So which means when you look at it really, a lot of the things you're already doing now, so which means you could start writing them to go into your CPD, because working with the two candidates that you will be working during your training goes towards your CPD. So you should be writing, making notes of what you are doing right now, and that will go in your CPD. Meeting, any meeting you attend, standardization meeting, which is very important for an assessor. This is the meeting where you find out about changes, about new regulation, about updates, about the assessment methods that the center will be using. So any meeting you attend to do with assessment, goes into your CPD. Now, I've mentioned all this, but how do you record it in your CPD? A reflective account of each activity is what you will need to do. For example, if you attend a training, the same way you ask your candidate now, your NVQ candidates, to write reflective accounts, it's the same thing you will be doing, which is you will write a reflective account on the training that you attended, which is you will say what training you attended, when and where, and what you learned from that training, and that can go into your CPD. Reflective account, when you are shadowing, when you are working with NVQ candidates, reflect back on what you've done with them and start writing it in a reflective account format. That will go into your CPD. Any meeting you attend, you should get minutes of the meeting, and that will go in your CPD as well. Any reading you do a reflective account of it, that this is the book you read, or this is the article you read, where you found it, what it's all about. And it doesn't have to be a long report. It can be a short paragraph, as long as it shows that you've done something to do with assessment, that you've done something to develop your skills. All you need to do is, once you do that, it will just go straight into your CPD. Annual review report with IB. As you work as an assessor, you will meet with your IB on a regular basis, but once you're more experienced, you'll probably be meeting with your IB only once a year. So when you meet with your IB, it's good for you to get your IB to do like an annual review with you. There are certain documents that or around for you to use for that. What the IB will do is kind of review the work you've done for that whole year, and based on that we'll write a report of how good you are, how competent you are, what needs to be changed, what needs to improve, and based on that you will have an action plan. That action plan comes from your review, because if, for example, the IB says you need to do a bit more research on this certain area, then you will have an action plan that says check maybe health and safety, and you have a deadline, you have who's going to do it. The same way you do action plan for your NVQ candidates is the same way you need to have an action plan for you. Later in the course, you will see towards the end, there's something that you will need to do before you can complete this training, which is called Continuous Professional Development Plan, where you will need to do a plan of how you're going to develop yourself professionally after your training, after this training. And I think that will give you practice. That will help a lot as well. It's a requirement of the awarding body before you complete your training. So I think that will help you to start thinking, what can you do to start building your CPD? What can you do to start updating yourself, to start broadening your knowledge and your skills? So very, very important. So this is the content of your CPD. There are a lot of online websites that have different materials that you can use to build your CPD. There are even websites that will store your CPD online. So you can go on Google and just research, but at the end of this I will give you a link as well that you could go, because they are very good. They have the content of the CPD, they have all the forms they use. Now you don't need to use their form, but just have a look at what people out there are using to build their CPD. Now the next thing is reflective practice. The reason I'm going to talk a bit on reflective practice is because it's part of the course that you are doing. It's part of the knowledge questions, and a lot of people might have a bit of difficulty in answering it because it's a bit complex. It's a bit, sometimes when you look at the question, you're thinking, why am I talking about reflective practice? But that's why we're going to look at it today. Reflective practice is important because reflective practice is part of your CPD. Like I said before, a lot of the work you do, you write a reflective account on it to put in your CPD. So that's why here you need to understand what reflective practice is and why reflective practice is important, like its benefits. Reflective practice as an assessor now, I'm sure you know because you're already working with NVQ candidates, or if you haven't started working with them, you would have done different assessment methods, and one of them is reflective account. Now, reflective practice is when you reflect back on your day-to-day practice critically. What it means here is you're not just thinking, okay, what did I do yesterday? And you write it in a story. No, you need to go deeper than that. Reflective practice requires you to look at what you have been doing with a critical eye so that you can identify areas for improvement. As an assessor, like I've said, we need to continuously develop ourselves. There's always room for improvement. Nobody is perfect. All the assessment methods that are out there, not all of them are perfect, and there's always place to have new methods. They're always place to have new changes, new regulation, improvements. So that's one thing that that reflective practice will allow you to do. Reflective practice is when you take time to sit down and look at, maybe you've done portfolio of 5 candidates. Now you look at how did you do it, but look at it critically. What could you have done better to improve the work, or to make sure that your candidate complete quicker, to make sure that your candidate hit all the criteria at a faster time, to make sure that you saved more time. You didn't have to go and see them that many times. So this is what you're doing. You're looking back at what you've done with a critical eye, and that will help you to identify areas that you could have done better, areas that you could improve. And really, reflective practice is mainly existing in areas of professional, so which means it's where you're learning from your professional experience rather than learning from educational. So which means you're not going to class to learn something. You are just, based on your own professional experience, what you have been doing. By reflecting back on it critically, you're learning more. Sometimes when you think back and you start assessing your own work, you will learn more from it. So this is why reflective practice is important, and why reflective account is a really one of the best methods in NVQ training, reflective account for NVQ candidates, for the candidates you'll be assessing, because they are working, they are not going to school, you are not teaching them, you are assessing them. And reflective practice is something that will help them to learn from their professional experience in their workplace. The same way when you are a candidate, when they are doing their reflective account, it's good for them to write what they've been doing, but it's also good for them to say how they could have improved that, and that makes it a stronger reflective account. So really, with reflective practice, you're learning from professional experience rather than going to school, rather than going to do a training. So it's very important. And like I've said already, it's self-assessment. You are assessing yourself. You don't have to wait for somebody to come and assess you. With reflective practice, you sit down, you assess your own practice, and you decide what are the places that you need to improve on and how you can improve it. And therefore, you can decide how you can develop yourself. So this is basically what reflective practice is. It's not a very big topic, but it's very important for you to know what it means and its benefits, because you will need it when you are doing your knowledge side of the training. Useful link. This is the link that I was talking about. This is a website that I've come across that has information on continuous professional development, how the portfolio needs to look like, what you need to have in your portfolio. They have very good forms that they are using, but like I've said before, doesn't mean you need to use that form. I just want you to have a look at the website and kind of understand what continuous professional development is, what the format looks like. You can browse the form that they have. They have a lot of good information you can download. They have policies, regulations on NVQ and updates. So it's good for you to have that information. And once you qualify, like I've said, going to those websites and researching will go towards your CPD. So which means already you're starting doing something about that, and you could start recording, like I said, reflective account of every activity that you are doing that contributes towards your continuous professional development. So this is really what continuous professional development is all about. There's the reflective practice side, which enables you to self-assess yourself, reflect back on your work critically, and look at room for improvement. And continuous professional development, like I've said, is what will help you in terms of showing your track record, showing your the skills, the development, whatever you've been doing. So very, very important. Continuous professional development, very important in the life of an assessor. And I would suggest, while you do this training, start researching about it and start putting together your continuous professional development portfolio, because as soon as you finish, I'm sure all of you want a job. So start getting ready for that, and the work that you're doing with the NVQ candidates will go into your CPD. So start writing reflective account of what you're doing with your candidate. If you want, I can also check it, so you can email us any questions you have, and we will always get back to you. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.